Hi, thank you for checking out this video. My name is Jermaine, co-founder of the Learn, Grow, Invest community. Today, we're going to be looking at Lombard Depot Limited. We're going to do a stock analysis and review. So let me tell you what we're going to cover today. So we're going to look at a few things. We're going to look at just an overview of the company. We always start with that. We want to let you know and understand what the company does. The next thing that we're going to do is look at the annual report. Well, technically not the annual report because it's really 9 months that's included, but we're going to look at that. Next, we're going to look at the quarterly financials ending January 31st, 2021. Then we're going to look at the price history. We're going to look how Lombard has been trading since the start of the year. And then I'm just going to talk about some of the key things that I've seen from all of the information that we've looked at. This is going to be an interesting video. There are a lot of things I like about Lombard. There are some things that I'm concerned about as well. So I'm going to share all of those at the end of the analysis. So stick around. I want to say before I go any further, the information shared here is for discussion, education, entertainment, and illustrative purposes only, and should not be construed as professional financial advice, solicitation, or recommendation to buy or sell any securities, including Lombard Depot Limited. I am not a licensed financial advisor, and as such, I recommend you speak to one before making any financial decision. So right now, we're going to start with Lombard Depot's website, and this is found as at lombarddepotja.com. So I'm going to zoom in so that you can see it. So one of the things I like to do when I'm looking at a company is first looking at their website. Their website will tell you everything that they do, their products, maybe focus on some of their key customers. And most sites should have information related to their annual reports or important news related to investors. So it's important to look there. Now, one of the things you notice right here is that the two companies, Lombard and Blue Power, are associated with each other. All right. So Lombard Depot is a subsidiary of the Blue Power Group Limited. It is a full service hardware and building material store located in Papine. We stock an extensive inventory of construction and hardware supplies, from lumber to concrete blocks to paint and everything in between. So what we get from that is what they do. Right, so let me just scroll down to show you the products that they sell. That will give you an idea of what they provide. So everything that you're seeing here on this page right now. So we have lumber, steel, ply, roofing. There's a page 2. There are blocks, aggregates, thin set and grout, tiles. All right, so you get the idea. Those are all the products that they provide. So that should give you an idea that everything that, well, a lot of the items that goes into construction and the making of homes or offices are what Lombard provides. So what that should tell you right away is that with the way the real estate market has been trending, the way that, a lot of persons since the start of COVID have been doing home improvements. We see companies like Cygnus coming out and saying they're bullish about the real estate sector. We've seen other reports that the prices of lumber has, skyrocketed. So all of these things are boding well for lumber, right? So that's something very important to note. So let's look at the annual report for 2020. So how I'm going to do this is I've highlighted some areas in advance. I'm not going to go through the entire report because we're trying to do this review in 30 minutes. So I'm going to highlight the areas. I'm going to link to the reports that I've used in the description, and all of this information will be made available to you so that you can access it and give it a read if you need to. So we're going to start with the management discussion and analysis. So it says here what Lombard does already. We already spoke about that from the website. So let me zoom in here. So it says that the company has been incorporated and domiciled in Jamaica since 2019. And it commenced operations over 20 years ago as a division of Blue Power. We know that part already. All right, let's talk about some of its customers and suppliers. So the vast majority of customers at the Lombard Depot are small contractors or owners of homes and commercial buildings. All right, that's the makeup of their customer base. It says approximately 70% of sales consist of cement, steel, lumber, and paints, while 30% comprise of large number of items, including plumbing and electrical supplies. What this made me think of is Carib Cement. It made me think of Blue Power because I mentioned that they have started to source some of their materials through Blue Power. So those are stocks that, as I'm researching this one, I'm thinking about those as well, because if this company is doing well, chances are they are doing well also. So it says most of the supplies are obtained locally from established companies as Carib Cement, we just mentioned them. Tankwell, Berger Paints, so maybe you want to look at Berger as well, not sure. So let's talk about the performance summary. So this report covers from May 1 to April 30. However, the financial statements included in this management discussion and analysis examine the performance of Lombard Depot for the 9 months since 2019 of August 2019, when the company was incorporated and took over the assets and liabilities from Blue Power Group Limited. For a 9-month period, revenues increased by 3%. And we, of course, everything that we look at for the next few months are going to mention COVID. It also has here that for accounting, after accounting for this impairment loss, the net profit after tax for the 9 months was 22 million. It is worthy of note that the 2020 profits include a tax charge of 9.9 million on profits up to December 2019, when the company listed on the junior market of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Now we know that going forward for the next 5 years, they will not be liable for corporation tax. So that's a benefit that I've mentioned in previous videos that companies that list on the junior market has, so that actually make their financial reports look a lot more attractive. And this is their balance sheet. So we see total assets, net current assets, investments, profit and loss. So we see gross revenue here, profit attributable to stockholders, earnings per stock unit, it's 3 here. And I believe at the end of the quarterly financials for the 9 months, it moved to 14 cents. So that's a great improvement that we'll see soon. And the financial ratios here, return on sales, return on equity, almost 12%, total return on assets, 5.93, debt to equity is 0.55, and the current ratio is 1.79 to 1. The closing stock price as at the date of this report was $1.13. Now we know that lumber traded as high as, I believe, $3.50 this year. So what I've done the highlights in a few colors. Things that are presenting risk or concern are highlighted in red. Things that are just, okay or average are orange, and things that seem favorable or seems to be headed in the right direction are highlighted green. Hopefully that helps. Let me know in the comments below if this is a good way to do it. So it says here that they encounter disruption in deliveries from their suppliers, a reduced workforce, and shorter store opening hours. We anticipate being able to achieve profitability notwithstanding these challenges and expect to strengthen the business once health conditions normalize. What they're saying here is that due to the restrictions presented by COVID, they weren't able to open as long as they want. They didn't have their same staff complement, and that could potentially impact how well they do. So once things get better, they're expecting to do better as well. For the financial year as a whole, gross profit margin improved due to aggressive marketing and sales and reduction in operating costs. Here's the thing though, Administrative expenses and other expenses also declined due primarily to the separation of Lumber Depot from Blue Power and our effort to reduce certain previously shared group costs. Now, the administrative expenses for the 9 months ending was pretty high. It actually saw an increase, and that will come out as well. Let's look at what they say about future strategies and prospects. So, two things to their benefit here. So because they are a part of the Blue Power Group, they benefit from existing relationships, existing customers. So this is not a company that was starting from scratch. This is a company that had existing customers, business, and they separated. So it's not like a company that is listing for the first time, new to the market or anything like that. All right. So it says that they are establishing risk mitigation milestones, experience in the construction industry, and market knowledge have secured successes even in areas where the fortunes of many of our competitors have fluctuated. So that's what I'm talking about here. In the next 12 months, Lumber Depot plans to solidify its new independent status by building out our team. HR policies are being expanded and staff training in certain areas have begun with a fairly new cadre of team members. All right, let me scroll forward. They are aggressively seeking to expand the square footage for their warehouse to accommodate more inventory. And in light of the growth experienced by the sector, which we mentioned before, they will continue to grow in market share through strategic purchases, increased sales, expanding their inventory in keeping with market demand, paying particular attention to the growing existing partnerships and developers by increasing their capacity to supply hardware items. Now, one of the things I saw earlier was a concern about cement shortage. So what would be important to note is how would that impact their last quarter? I don't suppose there'll be a challenge, since if there's a shortage, my guess is companies like Carb Cement will try to maintain relationships with some of their most profitable customers first. So we haven't seen Lumber say that they are impacted by that shortage. So let's assume that they're not, but it's just something to note. So we see here that the economic conditions will impact the performance of the overall construction industry. Very, very important to note. And they're saying here that despite the economic climate, they're seeing growth. And let me scroll through that. So they mentioned a couple of risks here, right? So in terms of the type of company, they have 3 specific type of risks that they wanted to highlight. That's market risk, credit risk, and liquidity risk. So we're going to look at those. So it says market risk is the risk that changes in market prices, such as foreign exchange rates and interest rates, will affect the company's income or the value of its holdings in financial instruments. So that's one of the risks. Next one is liquidity risk. That risk is that they will not meet their financial obligations as they fall due. Management mitigates this risk by maintaining adequate amount of its financial assets in liquid form. So this will explain them keeping cash to be able to meet those obligations when they come up. And credit risk is a risk that one party to a financial instrument will fail to discharge its obligation and cause the other party to incur a financial loss. All right, so that is a risk that they face as well. All right. And that's it. So what we're actually going to do, I'm going to do a quick scroll to see if I made any other notes. No. So next we're going to move to the 9-month financials. I got this from the Jamaica Stock Exchange's website. So this is for the quarter ending January 31st. So it says here what they do already. We went through that. So for the 9 months ending, let me actually zoom in here. Sometimes persons say that they're not able to see clearly. All right, so it's saying here for the 9 months commencing May 1, 2020 and ending January 31st, revenues increased by 10%. Profits increased 72% to 100 million. That is pretty good. The business benefited from improved revenues as well as improved tax status of the business arising from our listing on the JSE. So they got the tax benefit, and the construction industry is booming. So they saw a 72% increase. As a consequence of strong performance, shareholders' equity has increased 45% and now stands at 279 million. The next part, it says here, during the period under review, a major area of focus for us was to maintain consistent inventory levels in all of our key hardware supplies, lumber, steel, and cement. So I'd mentioned earlier that with a possible cement shortage, if they were keeping adequate supply to at least finish out their financial year, they shouldn't see any fluctuations, but it may impact them going forward. So maybe we see the impact of the cement shortage now, 6 months from now or 9 months from now. We have proactively developed relationships with key suppliers of construction inputs, both in Jamaica and overseas, and sought to buy strategically in order to contain the impact of rapidly increasing global commodity prices and transport costs. That's exactly what I was just saying. All right, and they have been successful with this. So that is something that is important to note, and it is a good point. All right, so let's look at the position of their assets and liabilities. So I'm just going to go with the overall amounts here. I'm not going to go in detail for these. So assets ending for the 9 months here grew from 274 million to 345 million. In terms of key areas for growth, cash and cash equivalents, accounts receivable has gone down, and inventories has increased. So we see two key areas there. Their accounts payable has almost doubled. That seems like about a 90% increase. And they would have paid a dividend, I believe, last year. In terms of long-term liabilities, non-current, they have lease liability of 66 million. That's there. It's actually a decrease from 72. All right, so that's what we'll look at there right now. Let's look at their statement. Let's look at their P&L now. So what we would have seen, we saw where they said there was an increase, 72%, that led to 100 million comprehensive income, and their EPS has gone up from 3 to 14. We see where their revenue has gone to $1 billion for the 9 months, as opposed to 921 million for the period before. We saw where profit before net finance costs and taxation is 102 million versus 38 million. So overall, you're going to see that increase there, which is just a great sign to see. This is just reflecting changes in equity. So it will list dividends paid here. And let's look at their statement of cash flows, right? So cash flows from operations, 100 million as opposed to 22. So net cash provided by operating activities, 149 million as opposed to negative 56 million. Then we see cash and cash equivalents at the end of the period being 140 million as opposed to 29 million. So this is definitely a great improvement from the period before. And I believe everything else here was not worth noting. Now, what I have next for you is, this is actually Barita's report on the IPO for Lumber. Now, I like to look at this information to see how companies I like to look at this information to see how companies would have projected the performance of the stock before the stock was listed, and then look to see how it compares to what they're doing now. I think that's important because I want to see, one, if I can trust the assessments that are being made by the broker, and what sort of factors go into them determining whether or not something is a recommendation or not. So I actually do like to go back to any IPO that was listed a year or 2 years and see what people were saying about it before it was listed, and then look to see how it's performing now and if that's in line with what was said, so I know how to treat it in the future. All right, so let's continue. So this is from Barita. As I said, I'm going to scroll through because a lot of this information you already know. So it spoke to their dividend policy. So it has not stated a target payout ratio here, and we look at what dividends they would have paid out soon, but it did say, this is also subject to the need to maintain funds to reinvest earnings for growth. And I would imagine that since they are operating in an industry where there's a lot of concern about inventory, they may choose to keep cash for those purposes. In terms of risk and merits that they identified, positive, it provides us with an opportunity to gain exposure to a company in the construction industry. It's a company that is established, it's been around for a long time, and the way that they're using the funds is meant for future growth. It's not for anything that wouldn't be considered a positive thing. In terms of risk, now we would have seen them mention a market risk before. That's listed here. Operational cost structure. So it says that these businesses are susceptible to high admin and labor costs, which can erode profits quickly. And if you notice, let me actually go back. So this is a 9-month report, and I wanted to state something. If you look at their administrative expenses, that would have went up from 108 million to 119 million. So that's an increase of more than 10%. All right, so and they mentioned it there. So that's something that you can look forward to in the future. And the company is almost entirely a distribution-based firm, plus has a low net book value compared to its IPO market cap. I mean, this is just for you to be aware of. If book value is important to you, then it's letting you know that what it has is considered low. And let me see, that was it from the Barita report. I also have now a current JMMB report. Now, to be clear, I got these reports from the website for JMMB and Barita. So please, I mean, these reports are intended to be shared for its customers. They recommend that if you want to make an investment decision for this company, you speak to them directly. So again, as I said at the start of the video, this is not financial advice. I'm not telling you to buy a lumber. I'm just going through the report and sharing the information with you. So let's scroll to the highlights. So JMMB, as at June 17, 2021, is ranking lumber as a buy, as it is trading materially below its fair value estimate. We are also of the view that the company will continue to increase revenues and profitability as demand for construction-related materials continues to grow. So we've seen that this investment is suitable for investors seeking capital appreciation with a medium to high risk appetite. We expect lumber to approach our price target within the next 14 months. And their price target, I'll share that shortly. So I'm going to scroll through. So in terms of outlook and valuation, so naturally what we see is that they've benefited from a demand for construction. The industry is growing, the real estate market is growing, and these products have seen significant price increases over the past 12 months. They've been able to contain the impact this has on their cost of goods sold. The company has also benefited from have also benefited from an improvement in their gross margins for 3 consecutive quarters. We saw that from the report. All right, so this rise in terms of lumber prices globally was due to demand far outpacing supply, as construction in the US has seen a spike while many lumber plants are yet to reopen after closing on the advent of the pandemic. To combat this, the company has turned to purchasing lumber from Blue Power. So I mentioned Blue Power before. So if lumber is doing well, the industry is growing and they're now purchasing from Blue Power, you can look to see an impact on Blue Power's financials. So that's a stock, if you're interested in lumber, I'd be looking at as well. This arrangement sees Blue Power leveraging its previously built relationships with lumber plants overseas to secure adequate supply of lumber at preferential prices. This will allow them to maintain their cost of goods to a reasonable number. All right. And what they would have shared here is lumber's PE based on the sector average and how it, compares to the other companies. So I would have a look at that. I'll link the report below for the purposes of this video. I'm not going to focus on it. So the key risk to their earnings target for lumber is its ability to contain its administrative expenses. We mentioned that before. And they're paying those admin expenses based on the terms of a corporate service agreement. The company pays for management, admin, accounting, and financial services. Lumber's administrative expenses have increased by 20% quarter over quarter. So in terms of the recommendation now for JMB, as I said, they recommend it as a buy and their fair value estimate is $5.44. So we'll see soon what the stock last traded as, and you'll see what the potential upside is. The stock, again, is more suitable for those persons who are seeking capital appreciation and are within the medium to high risk profile. All right. So let us go to the Jamaica Stock Exchange's website. I'm looking at the year to date for lumber. So it would have started the year at $1.50 and at its peak went to $3.58. So if you were holding at the start of the year, you'd have seen more than a 100% growth, and currently it's trading at $2.92. So JMB's fair value estimate is $5.44 and it's trading at $2.92. So $5.44 minus $2.92, that's $2.52. That's a potential upside of 86% according to JMB and their estimate that would have been done in June. All right. We saw volume traded on this day, July 28 for 10 million units. Now this was interesting for me. So I think we have to wait to see next quarter or when these financials come out who did the transaction. But based on these volumes, this is likely maybe a top 10 shareholder or some fund that was liquidating or maybe taking some profits to do some other transaction. And we saw where it went from $3.37 to $2.77. Right? So that's important to note. And in terms of units available, 706 million shares outstanding. It's been as high as 370 in the last 52 weeks. Year to date, it's up 89%. We looked at that already. This is an article that was speaking about the state of, it was comparing Home Depot, and I thought it would be interesting to link that article so you can check it in the description. News report speaking about lumber profiting. This was actually an article saying a top shareholder was about to exit right before they listed. I'll link these articles below so that you could see them. All right. So that's it for my analysis and review of Lumber Depot. Hope you found it interesting. So there are There are some things that I noted. So the construction industry has been doing well, will continue to do well based on what the reports are saying. There are links between lumber, blue power, Carib cement. Bear that in mind. So as the industry continues to do well, those companies are likely to do well. I know that Carib Cement is one of those companies that a lot of persons don't look at due to its nominal price, but you have to focus on the industries as an investor that are doing well. So if you think about it, well, depending on your investment goals, of course, you want to look at the industries that are doing well, because those industries are likely to be the ones whose stock will do well, at least in the short term anyway. So I'll consider doing a review of Blue Power to see maybe what the impact has been on their quarterly financials based on this relationship that is stated here. Let me know if you'd be interested in that review. And it's interesting to see how lumber will perform. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. And thank you for watching. Be sure to check out another one of the reviews I'm going to link right below, and I'll see you in the next video.